The second part of this animation assignment, which is creating a looping background animation. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to look at adding a foreground element of a plant or maybe seaweed if this is an underwater scene, something to be going through kind of the front of your scene. We're also going to take a look actually very first at correcting kind of the blip that was happening in this demo animation. So as our loop comes back, you see that little jump that just happened, right? So there's a little bit of a jump that's happening, and it's because where our rocks kind of end here in this motion tween and where they start are not exactly lined up. So what I'm going to go all the way back and do is check the very first keyframe here, and I'm going to see where I'm actually going to turn off visibility on the hills and this kind of background tint. So all I can see right now is the edge of my stage and where it lines up with the rocks. So when I look at these rocks and I zoom in here, I can see that the scene stage ends right there. It's about halfway between this diagonal slant right here. So if I back out to my animation and I look at where this whole scene ends, here at 150, see how this is more towards the top of it? I need to make that point be right about this center point right here. So I'm going to hold shift and nudge the rock scene just a little bit, so this looks pretty right here. This is about halfway between the top and bottom of this slant, so that should fix that bit of a blip that was happening with our loop not being quite right. So I'm going to go ahead and save that change. Now what I want to look at is I'll turn off the rocks and turn on the hills. I need to make sure that the hills also end at the same point that they start. So if I go back to start here and I look at the hills here, that it goes once, up twice, and then it's almost down into the pit there. So where it stops, I have to make sure that this is really in the middle of the pit. This isn't back here where it should be. So if I back this up right to about a little bit further right here, now that is the same point in the hill where it started. So if I scroll back to the first frame here, remember I can see the hill coming down and doom, right before it really takes the last dip. So now that I've checked that, and it looks like it's about the same, if I scroll back and check once more, that looks pretty good. So if I test this out again, I'll save and test, I should not really see that jump that I saw before. Hopefully it just goes pretty smoothly. There might have been a small jolt there I think I saw, but it's very tiny because we got those to line up so closely. So really want to try and get those to match as closely as possible. So let's turn back visibility on all of our layers here, and like I said, we're going to add a new layer, something that's going to be all the way up in the foreground, so it needs to be the topmost layer in our timeline. And so in my former example, I put a cactus. Maybe on this one, we'll pretend this is an underwater scene, and so I'll call this seaweed, this layer. We will have a kind of a big drawing, actually, of some kind of vegetation coming through the front. And as you can see, like we go back to this animation, that the cactus starts in at about the 15th frame, and then takes off and exits the stage at about the 75th. So we'll try and set up that about the same here with seaweed as the example this time. So F6 on the 15th frame, and we'll take our pen tool and go ahead and kind of draw really big sort of lightning bolt-ish shaped shapes, and fill those in with kind of light green color, and I'll also take out the outline from this. And I will take the edges and kind of bend them a little bit. Give this more of a seaweed type shape. This point in here. There we go. I kind of want to curve this maybe back out a little bit. Yeah, maybe this curve here. There we go. That's a little bit. Now we'll take this and maybe copy this and then paste it. And now I'll take this and probably change the color of it a little bit, maybe a little bit closer to the original, and shrink it down just a little bit so that it's not, oops, not quite the same exact size. There we go. And I'll probably copy and paste one more. Maybe make this one even lighter. And then move that into position kind of in front of these three. There we go. Maybe just add a little bit more. All right. So there we have kind of my seaweed that I've decided to draw in the front. And you got to make sure that that goes all the way off the bottom edge of your scene. Now I know it's hard to see that, so we'll go ahead and turn on just the visibility. So here I can see the stage goes underneath these. So I actually need to take my seaweed and move it down just a little bit so that the stage does not, that these go lower than it. So I'll actually take this one and maybe just bring it down a little bit longer so that it goes a little bit lower there. So turning back visibility on everything. Now I can take this seaweed, I'm going to go out to the 75th frame or so and add another keyframe there. And I'll take this drawing of seaweed and I'll move it over here. But actually what I would need to do first, so I'm going to undo a few times, take out that keyframe as I need to make this a graphic. So I'll press F8 to convert into a graphic. We'll call this seaweed. And this graphic will then take and add a keyframe on the 75th keyframe, move this graphic to the just off the left hand side of the stage, and then we will add a motion tween. And let's watch this one time. And so you can see our seaweed kind of goes across the front and off the side. And as our animation keeps playing, it should keep looping through. We could also add another one a little bit further up. I think that the mark I had in my previous demo was about 90 to the end. So we'll go ahead also and create another keyframe on the 90th frame. You can take the same seaweed graphic and you could move it over here again. Maybe shrink it down a little bit smaller this time. Still make it go all the way off the bottom edge of your stage, and then go to the just a second to last frame here in our animation, and we'll move this seaweed again over to the other side, add a quick motion tween in there, and give it a save and a play. We should see one larger batch of seaweed go by, and then a smaller one right behind it, and then it should loop again. And we'll get into, in the next part and final installment, adding something else into your scene, something on a motion guide, or any other thing that you would like to add to your animation. Actually, we will also add a walk cycle animation in the next assignment as well. So stay tuned. Good luck.